Just gonna do one more WoW video and then I'm gonna switch it up.
A few days ago,
I definitely wanted to cover PvP. This one, I've only seen a couple minutes of this one, but it looked really, really interesting.
Browsing the New World subreddit. New World has made some...
Oh, big mistake. I don't know what's going on with those guys, man.
New World has made some changes to how PvP scaling works thanks to player...
This is gonna answer some... This might even dive into some of my concerns earlier. I was talking about my friend referencing New World, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they started focusing on PvP in the beginning of development, but I don't know the way it went towards the end. Like, I don't know what its PvP focus is like upon release.
Feedback from the alpha, and one post really stuck out to me, discussing how open world or unrestricted PvP in MMOs works so differently to PvP in any other medium. So let's discuss balancing issues around PvP within the MMORPG genre, how it faces different challenges, and how to regulate it according to other PvP games.
Some of my favorites.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife.
I wish there was a
regular viewers
option
will know
for it in
I'm a
Final
fan
Fantasy.
of PvE over PvP.
No one would do it.
I am too.
I know why it's not there,
because
because it would be like dead. But I just wish that there was both the draw, the desire, and the option. Because I think open world PvP is really, really nice in games when it's implemented well. When it's implemented well. WoW does it pretty well with the war mode system. They just cut its legs off after release. But it seems like for the past couple expansions, the first couple weeks of that expansion has some of the best feeling open world PvP ever. And I think that's like a real testament to how good the war mode system is. It's just that their gearing is ass. And the progression and all that kind of stuff and PvP in the game in general, like, it's just bad. I think its best state, its healthiest state, and I know this is going to be controversial, but in my opinion, its healthiest state was when they had templates. Because that's when they have the best balance. That's when, right now, it's laughably easy for someone to do 2, 3, 4 times as much damage, or have even, like, double the health of another player. Like, that's common, if someone's, like, rolling in, they just hit fresh 80, and they're in, like, fresh gear, like, they might as well be useless, They are the punching bag. And in Final Fantasy, you don't have to worry about any of that. Like, no matter what level you are, no matter what point in the game that you jump into PvP, you're having a skill-based experience. And in WoW, like, they didn't want to go, like, full hog into something like that, which I can appreciate, like, I can appreciate they want to have some sort of sense of progression. Which is what they were just talking about here, is like, oh, MMOs, like, need progression. Like, PvP kind of doesn't. You want, like, the actual PvP environment itself to be fair and balanced. Like, that's the reason, like, Halo 2 or Halo 3 had such amazing PvP, and that's what, like, the templates in WoW did when they, like, drilled back the system, is like, oh, your gear would have, like, a bottom point and an upper point, and every point in your item level would give you 0.1% more damage and health and, like, power and stuff, but you would only go up to 40%. That was amazing. Whatever happened to that?
I'd like to discuss something a bit different. The difficulties in translating a progression-based power-gaining level system as seen in the traditional MMORPG design, and how you can translate that, or the difficulties
a lot of times when I
in
think
translating
of
that
a progression system that works
to a fair and balanced
might be
PvP
something like
system.
League of Legends.
Before we begin, consider dropping a like.
League of Legends has a lot of problems, don't get me wrong.
Oh boy.
But,
ring the bell for all the
like its runes or other kinds of, like,
Massive
loadouts.
thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch.
It actually does a pretty good job with
More on this at
its
the end.
loadouts.
For now, let's begin. The MMO...
I still remember there was this interview going into Shadowlands. It was during the beta of Shadowlands, and Ian was being interviewed by Preach, and my blood started boiling. I got so triggered from hearing Ian's response to this one question, where it was two things. It was two things that got me riled up. One of them was Preach was answering this question that Ian posed, where he was saying, well, you know, if everyone was exactly the same, like if you went into PvP and there was no gear, there was no gems, like everyone was, you know, on the same level, like, would you even want that? You know, and he was kind of like, she even want that, you know? And like Preach was like, yeah. And I was sitting there like, yeah, you know, that's exactly what I would want. Like, that's what I've been wanting this whole time. Like, skill, you know, like PvP should be something, you know, where, you know, maybe you could have like a little bit of a wind behind your sails kind of carry system, where if someone's carrying, like, you reward them a little bit, but you shouldn't be rewarding them like a whole lot, you know? And for that just to be like completely arbitrary, like based on gear, as opposed to like some sort of performance or like something that you work towards, like based upon what you're doing in the match, it just feels so like off to me in like how design ought to be for PvP.
RPG is a progression-based gaming genre. You start from a low level, you play, and you progress, becoming a high level. The progression is tracked in various ways. More health, more mana, more damage, more skills and abilities, more areas of the map open to you, more dungeons, more items and equipment. And all of these equal
this guy's
more
really good.
power. Generally speaking, the longer you play an
He's
MMORPG,
leading the shots
the more
really well.
powerful you become. But it's how the
right
power
there.
is earned and then kept that causes
Might speak
issues
too soon,
with
but-
balancing in PvP.
Well, there's
Seems like
always
that
like
guy's
going to
in
be
practice.
the like with PvP games. The problem with games and PvP and MMOs is it has two conflicting ideologies.
That
Like
face.
MMO PvP, in a way, it's like an oxymoron.
Yes, this is exactly
Because
what I'm talking
MMOs
about.
are built around like gradual character progression that builds up over time.
progression
and PvP
philosophy
is built up.
is
It's
at
a
odds with
contradiction.
one
Yeah,
another.
exactly.
Between
PvP is
PvE and
about
PvP.
you know a test of skill, and it's about you know challenging another person. So this is what the problem is that you have two conflicting ideas.
Yeah, you don't want like
that,
a test of
that
skill,
are like diametrically
test of
opposed
how
that
good
you're
you
trying
are,
to
and
kind of bring together, and that's why
you're
every
wearing
MMO
like
has like
a
different
full suit
systems
of
for
plate
it, whether it's like
armor and
PvP
like got
scaling,
this big
you know,
massive
like
like
low-level
sword,
players like
and
not
then
being
your opponent
flagged
walks up
or
with like
anything else.
absolutely nothing but their birthday suit and a stick.
So you mean the longer you play, the more powerful you get?
Yeah.
Yeah, you won the fight.
Yes,
It's not that.
I want to say, hang on, why
That's
don't you
satisfying.
get more skillful if you play for longer? Not just
Right.
power, not just raw numbers or raw stats. As you level,
I think a great example of a game that had like a
Hmm.
really, really high skill cap was Mists of Pandaria. Because like the
Yes.
difference between and
was
like
my
Cataclysm
favorite-
2 as well, but I think especially Mists of Pandaria
My favorite
is that
class
there were
feel
so
and my
many
favorite
things
PvP
that
vibe.
you could do and so many different like levels of gameplay that you had to understand whenever you were a high level player
Mm-hmm.
that in order to obtain those things like
It
let's
was
say like a
perhaps a little bit
2700
too
player
homogenized,
was just
like
simply
with the
more
CC
powerful
and
than a 2200
what
player
a lot of people
by
brought.
the
It was a
nature of
little
their
bit too
understanding of the
homogenized,
game.
but it was
up and gain
definitely
items
one
and
of
weapons.
the
Your
most
stats will
excellent like
increase your base health or the standard damage you do will
balances
increase along with it.
because
These
of
are
how
straight up
much they
numerical
focused on it.
values
It feels.
increasing. Even
I think
if
they
your
had more
skill
dedicated
level
Easy.
doesn't change, your
PvP
power
managers
will,
at that
because
time.
the numbers behind the scenes are just higher, and they will remain higher. When a level 100 player and a level 1 player meet and battle, the level 100 will likely win, because the MMORPG is one of the only genres of gaming that allows a player to increase in power and then battle against a player of vastly inferior power level due to less time played and
That's why people like it, because they're bad. And
Yeah.
it's not even because they're bad. It's because they don't want to have to try.
It's ridiculous.
They want to become so powerful that they can just bitch slap somebody and the character is just like deleted from existence
They
because
wanna
of
be able
how
to
good
palm
their gear
pyro
is.
every
That's
second.
why. That's why people play the games. It's that they want to have that power difference. They want to earn that power difference and then lord it over people.
It does feel good earning the power
That's what it
difference.
is.
Like
Back to the
I will say
original
that like a
New
good.
World post,
It
the one
feels
I saw
very
on Reddit. And
gratifying
then let's
earning
look at-
the power difference. Like in Wrath of Lich King, that was a good time. I can't wait to see all the. I was very shocked that I didn't pick up Burning Crusade, but it was just kind of the timing and also the forewarned knowledge that there were going to be boosts. Once I saw there were boosts, I'm like, nope, I'm out. But I'm shocked that I didn't actually get into Burning Crusade Classic because that was the one I was looking forward to most of all, if not Wrath. But I've certainly been satisfied with the pour of PvP videos coming out as a result. And I'm very much looking forward to the pour of videos that will come out of Wrath of Lich King PvP. And one of the nice things that was satisfying back when I was playing Wrath PvP was I was Hunter, and once you earned like the soft cap for armor penetration on Marksman Hunter, you were just annihilating people from afar. Like, you had one of the best ranges in the game, and you just exploded people. I mean, like, if you were facing a mage or some other clothy, like a priest, like you find a priest with his inner fire charges exhausted, or like a mage or warlock even, you just blow them up. Like, they explode and get deleted off the map. Soft cap was amazing. I could definitely see why armor pen was like yanked out, but like that was so much fun.
Player versus player
Ridiculous.
examples, both in games and in real world sports, because fans of
And the reason armor pen was so amazing was because it would reverse armor. So similar to a lot of other games where it's like, oh, this guy has 10% fire resist, but I've got 30% fire penetration, so he's going to take 20% extra fire damage.
in any
IRL
player
40K
versus player
stream, one day
situation,
maybe.
balancing is key. Making sure there is fair
These are all
chance
those
for
gray,
victory
fuzzy
on
areas that
any
will always
side of a
exist
conflict
with
is part
monetization
of
of
the crux
games
drama.
and
Drama is
Yeah.
conflict, and PvP
what do you
players
give a
sure
player
drama.
for free?
Drama
What
is what
do you
drives almost anything forward, the desire to play more.
choose
And
to
if the
pocket
conflict
off,
is
or,
unfair,
Drama
skewed
Andes,
with
man.
one side or another having an advantage, the drama is lessened once the victory is almost written before the match even starts.
Yeah.
The more traditional hardcore MMORPGs
Yeah, the
are about
monetization's
gathering and
always gonna be,
consolidating
like, a very
power,
fuzzy
so when you go
area,
and fight someone, you can use
but
all of this you've gathered, regardless
that's
of the
what I
balance of that
respect
situation.
about a
It's
lot of
not
those
regardless
developers who there's a lot of those developers who they know exactly where that line is, and they draw it effectively. Like, one of my biggest beefs with some of Blizzard's communication more recently, it hasn't always been like this, but more recently as an example, has been their fuzziness, where it seems like nearly every single answer is, well, we're never going to say no. It's always possible down the line, but we're not looking into it right now. Like, it's always some sort of like dodge, you know? And there are some things where it actually helps the player base. Like, it improves the feedback that you're able to get from your own audience if you very clearly define, like we're not saying never, 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 ever, but at this point, this is definitely where we never see ourselves going, unless things change. Like you can communicate it in a way where you leave yourself an out, but at the same time clearly distinguish, like, you don't foresee this ever being something that happens.
Basically, you should start with roughly what your opponent has as well, and victory should be decided based on who uses the
Parsing, come
resources
on.
they have
Yeah.
the best.
Please, chat.
Using pure power to decide the victor, or to make the victor incredibly obvious before competition even starts, is antithetical to the spirit of competition. Almost every game that focuses exclusively on PvP content also has checks and balances to keep the battles balanced. Magic the
Yeah,
Gathering.
I think like this is the thing. Like my perspective on this is always that there should be like a window in which like two players that have, like, that are not necessarily exactly equal are brought closer together, but at the same time they're not the exact same. So like if a level 5 engages a level 60, I think the level 5 should be at a massive disadvantage, and it should be a one-sided fight. Absolutely. And I think that if a
Yeah,
level 60 with really good gear engages level 60 with really bad gear, the level 60 with really good gear will win 9 out of 10 times. But there is that chance that the bad player can win.
I disagree with that stance with a caveat. It depends on the context of the environment. Like, if you're doing open world PvP, then absolutely yes. Like, you can't have some level 5, or you can't have like a whole raid of level 5s or even level 1s, like rolling in and like disrupting the experience of like a level 50 or 60 area. You know, that's just going to be like too ludicrous. But at the same time, in an environment where it's not open world, where it's like instanced PvP, like battlegrounds and stuff, then those kind of zones, like, why not? You know, why not have it like scale more? It depends upon like how your approach is. Like in Final Fantasy, where everything's on a set template, all your skills are being reversed, and it's essentially, for all intents and purposes, like a whole nother game mode, where once you're level 30, you're the same as anyone else who's above level 30, you know, and you could be like a 30 versus 50, but it's all fair. Like, I really only agree with this point when it comes to open world and open world specifically, and even to that point, like, it should only go so far.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that gear should matter. Gear should matter to an extent. Yeah. I think that if you want to have a game where gear doesn't matter at all, there are a lot of games that are balanced much better than Elder Scrolls Online, much better than World of Warcraft, that are PvP based games and are built around
like,
PvP. I think that as long as you do
like
MMO
Soul,
PvP, you are always going to have a dysfunctional and laggy and shitty system at its very core, because it is fundamentally
really
not
good,
built for
it's basically
PvP.
A fighting game MMO.
Formats to limit
play
the
a
power
fighting
level
game.
of available
Yeah,
cards.
you basically
Smash.
are playing like a fighting game MMO by playing something like Blaine Soul.
Valorant.
And maybe there's a better example than that I'm just not aware of, but
should be free for all and everything should
it's
be
got
allowed.
so many
They often don't
curves,
realize how
obviously,
crazy
I'm
they
aware of
sound
it.
to everyone else who engages in other balanced
If you've
forms
not
of
seen the
competition. And this is
characters
often
from
why
Blade & Soul
non-PvP
before,
players don't
it
want to
is
get
worth a
involved.
look.
They see the balance is
Yummy.
against them. So how do we fix this? How do we get non-PvP players interested in PvP? It's actually quite simple. You
And
just
it's
make it
really fun,
skill-based instead of
fast-paced
power-based.
combat
Focus
as well.
on the spirit
Only reason
of
I don't play it more is
competition
because
and
they
not the generation and
super
consolidation of power
screwed the
over
pooch.
other players. Some people say, oh,
Super screwed the pooch when it came to the armory set. All the other releases of Blade & Soul, it had something very similar to like a free wardrobe where you could put all your different gear and all your different appearances and armors into this wardrobe. And it was like that for like the Korean version, the original version, like all that, and different ports to other countries. And then when they ported it to the US, they decided to link that behind a subscription, which ruined any investment I had into it, because I want to collect appearances. But if you're just looking for a free to play like fighting game style experience where it actually has really good like leveling and other stuff too, and really good mobility, like the flying and the sort of like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, like hovering that you can do like across the zones is awesome. Blade & Soul's more than worth checking out at least once.
oh, you should only PvP at max level with max equipment. And okay, but do you know what you're doing when you say that we should PvP at a specific level with specific items? You're actually trying to balance the fight. If you're arguing it with
in my opinion, that's a very good insight.
Yep.
I never thought of that. That's a really, really good insight. But by saying that you should only PvP at max level with max gear, that does mean that you're effectively advocating for balance. That's really, really good, really good insight. On top of that, though, I think also giving good rewards. If you want people to do PvP, give good rewards. And like also like back in Burning Crusade, for example, a really good player with bad gear can beat a really bad player with good gear.
Yeah.
Like for example, if I was in
that.
full Sunwell gear and Vinruki was in full Season 1 gear, Vinruki would win. So there needs to be like, I think that's the perfect level, where there is some degree of balance and there's some degree of bringing people together, but the better geared and the better skilled players do have the advantage, just not that much.
More fun if it was balanced, then yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
so
Rookie had some amazing mage highlights.
Huge time
Him and a
investment
lot of
from the
others.
lower level players. Why is balanced fun something players have to slog through the unbalanced curb stomp part to experience. If a max power player attacks a mid power player, they're likely going to win. And if the response is, well, the mid-level player should just get stronger, you're advocating for balance and fairness. But you're demanding it be achieved by the lower level player working harder and dedicating time simply because the higher level player already has. The changes New World made
there doesn't have to be
players have more
fairness. Like, you can have some imbalance.
Now, previously, PvP.
But I think it works better in a system where it's like completely enclosed within like the game mode. So if you're doing a BG, if you're doing like an AV or a Winter Grasp or a Shran or whatever, within that specific game mode, there should be very specific buffs or debuffs that you can apply to yourself or to other players, or like changes the sort of maybe there's like a zone-wide buff that like alters state depending upon actions taken. So like, you know, you take over certain areas, or you like, you know, take over like a certain NPC, like that gives you a buff that like gets applied, you know, zone-wide. Like that's fine, but when you start having imbalances like completely arbitrary, like, oh, it's my gear, or it's like this other thing that I worked at for like months and months before, it cheapens the experience in my opinion. It should be something intended specifically for that game mode.
Scaling made it so a level 40 player fighting a level 20 player was actually relatively balanced, and this was annoying higher level players.
Yeah, they did a
PvP
PvP
winning due to scale,
balancing or scaling or whatever.
They should have an advantage in fights
Hidden
due to
scaling in
more
WoW.
higher level.
100%. That's the way MMOs are, right? I mean, I think that's a fundamental for MMOs, and this is what I was saying before about having those conflicting ideologies, where MMOs are about building up the power of your character, and PvP is about skill. So like, how can you have both in the same game?
It was like the worst aspect of both sides of a negotiation. Like, here's what PvPers want, here's what PvE players want, and the compromise will do PvP power scaling, and both sides are like, gross. Ugh. How could you do this to us?
Players felt they were owed the advantage they had earned, and this advantage should be enough to make the skill of the other players less
There should be no hidden
The changes to open world PvP have actually promoted a large amount of players to say they will now
say hidden, but there should be no non-communicated scaling to players.
Because within the spirit of balance and fair competition, there's no point PvPing at anything other than
WoW
max.
does.
There's no incentive
It constantly
to
feels like they're trying to get one over.
Unbalancing the experience.
Like
People
ninjing
think that
things
I don't
in,
like
like
PvP
not in patch
in
notes and whatnot.
MMORPGs.
I think that the reality is that the experiences that people have in PvP is oftentimes imbalanced right in the first swing.
Oh, yeah.
Because the people that usually take the first
get-go.
swing are in a position of advantage. Which means, like, let's say you see somebody just got finished killing an elite, then you attack them, that person's at an advantage, etc. Like, I think that happens a lot. What I think they should do with New World, this is pretty much what they did, is they should have, like, brackets of PvP. So, like, level 1s and level 20s are all in pretty much the same
Not
bracket.
Even brackets. They
but, like,
even...
if you're level 50 and you fight against level 20, you're going to probably win because you're more powerful.
I fully agree with this, except for the word brackets. I get what he's going towards, but I wouldn't use the word brackets. There needs to be like a range, you know? So like there's a, what was the term for it? Let's see. ELO. Yeah, like an ELO rating. So basically like an internal score. It's kind of like your ranking in Arena, or other stuff, you know, like you would have your own internal personal ranking for Arena, and this shouldn't be for your character. Like Blizzard makes this mistake constantly where they don't know what they're doing when it comes to what should be applied to a character, what should be applied to a spec, or what should be applied to your account. And there's so many things currently in this game that would be way better. I mean, like talk about fast wins with like patch 9.15 content and like the little quick fixes that they're putting in, but there's so many other additional things that they could do where if they were just to shift it from being spec specific instead of character specific, it would make things like way better. Like how conduits were, for example. Like obviously everything surrounding conduit should be spec specific, but there's a lot of those kinds of systems where like they put them in and they make it character specific. Your own internal elo, it's not going to be a bracket system necessarily. It would work essentially the same, but you could have it fluid, where anyone who was within a certain range of above or below, they're going to have the ability to match with those kinds of people. So it doesn't have to be necessarily like a single bracket, but every single spec for every single point of rated content should have an internal elo system. And I'm talking for PvE as well. I'm talking about for mythics, I'm talking about for raids, I'm talking about for arenas and rated BGs. There should be a spec-specific internal elo for every single one of those. And then that way you could have solo queue. And it would work dynamically. Not necessarily in brackets, but dynamically based upon wherever your current score is.
And at like level 40 to 50 or whatever, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, yeah, different ranks or different general areas. I think that's what's fair. If you want balanced PvP, just play fucking Street Fighter or some dumb shit. Thanks for the resub, McConnell. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I don't like PvP or I dislike competition. The exact opposite is true. I am extremely competitive. I adore player versus player challenges in games that have been designed around it.
Exactly.
I love the cut and thrust of a balanced debate. I love the battle when it starts fairly on both sides. Some of my favourite games ever are player versus player experiences. Unreal
like
Tournament,
when one team
Command
starts
Conquer,
pulling up ahead in a battle,
Warhammer
all of a sudden
40K,
like the
Burnout
other
3, chess.
comes back.
I love competition, and I love one player taking on another player at a game that all the players love, and I love it most when it's balanced and fair.
I want to gear up. I want to spend all fucking day getting my character geared up, and then I want to go and I want to fucking delete somebody because they didn't play the game all day. And MMOs are the way that you can do that. And if I don't want to do that, I go play Valorant and I get shot at spawn, right? and that's what happens. Yes, I enjoy crushing insects. Yes, that is the reason why I like MMO PvP.
That's actually a big reason I started drifting a bit more towards stealth players in WoW as well. I can't tell you like how painful it was, especially playing through like vanilla, Burning Crusade, so forth, where your buffs cost a lot. So like I would res as priest, be getting battleground, I would be getting graveyard camped. I would res as priest, blow away like 3/4 of my mana, putting up my few buffs. Then I drink for like a minute. Okay, I'm finally drink. I put up some of my more temporary buffs like power word shield. I mount up. I start riding towards the battlefield. I get jumped on by a rogue and I die in a couple seconds. It was awesome, but it was also like those few imbalanced matchups where you just felt like, oh wow, like I'm not even being like given a chance here. Like that's where I started feeling like maybe I'll play a stealth class.
That's the reason why I play it. But I don't. You guys know, like I'm not a big PvP guy either.
Me neither.
I don't want to fuck around with that. It's funny to do.
I love PvP, but I love doing it casually.
It's fun to do for like a few days.
Yeah.
And then it just gets boring. Because you're just stomping on people every time. Like I remember I actually wanted to quit the game at the end of it was like the end of like Legion or the end of BFA. I forgot which one. I think it was the end of Legion.
And they put it down
because they had I think it might have been the end of WoD. Doesn't matter. I wanted to quit the game because I was playing on my Warlock in PvP and they had scaled everybody up to where everybody had the exact same level. In every single game in PvP, I would kill everybody and I would never die. because warlocks were fucking overpowered. Like I would go like 23-0 or like 15-0 every fucking game because it's not because I'm good. Like I'm not good. Like no, I'm a warlock. That's about it. Sounds like WoD, that was Legion. Yeah, it was probably Legion.
Up.
Either way, like yeah,
closer,
it just gets fucking boring after
the balance
a while.
still wasn't there because the warlock was so immensely more powerful.
I like winning.
So more OP that it was still boring.
No,
you want
it was still boring because there's too much imbalance.
Who is
you need enough balance for there's a challenge.
Imbalance.
But then you need just a little bit of unbalance to make it interesting.
If you think, like me, that both chess players should have access to the same pieces, no matter who's played longer, and the
give me 3 queens whenever I play
instead of unfair armies.
I play chess.
If you believe
Sounds
in
great.
power level brackets to balance the strength of players within competition games, if you believe a fight should start without the result,
I'm sure someone rolls out with
already, then you are a fan of fair competition.
Of 3
I
queens.
am right there with you. Skill over power.
This is how it
and
is.
until the MMORPG PvP crowd can understand that, the genre will forever be in the shadow of other, more balanced forms of PvP. Thank you for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch for keeping the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description.
I think this is a really good video, and it's a really good conversation too, because like it brings up as I said, the contradiction. Because if you make it to where like everybody's balanced 100%, like in New World,
it's so important for the designers to understand that. Then you'd have people getting pissed off because they're getting killed by low-level players who are much more skilled and they understand the game better, and that would make them feel bad because they worked really hard to get the advantages that they have. Then if you have people that are really bad and you know, like they have these, or they're not really bad, they're really good, they don't have that much time to play. I understand not wanting to have you know, a game designer job for literally like a payroll, like for literally every single feature that's in the game. But for PvP, come on, like you know that's going to have enough complexity to warrant someone focusing purely on that. And there's certainly a lot of people out there who enjoy that kind of gameplay. So why put the same people who, you know, are like a know-all or a PvE focused developer into a PvP sort of realm, because it is like its own mentality. And I think a lot of people underestimate just how much of it being its own mentality it is. Like it is a different flavor of game design.
And then you get killed by people who have better gear,
between making
then that's going to make them mad.
Or multiplayer game.
So it's like you can't win.
You can have simulators.
That's the way I feel about
it. They could both be
because
RPGs,
if you have if you bring on, like, you're basically like, are you going to make this 50% of the game players mad or this 50% mad? People hated PvP scaling in Legion, and they didn't like it in BFA either.
Right.
Like, so it's like this middle ground that I think many games don't really have the opportunity to really get to. Yeah, it's not 50% though. You're right. It's not a clean 50-50.
It was
but
like
what I think a lot of
people
like remember everybody wanted PvP scaling in WoD, and then they got it and they hated it. You see what I'm saying? Like the templates, everybody wanted this.
Other middle grounds prior to that, but they just never went back.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, oh, well, it worked better before
absolutely,
here, but let's try a brand new system again.